right, we're here. A little technical.
We are here. Greetings and salutations.
So let's join the.
We're in process, no doubt.
It's already going on. All right, here we go. Let's get Tony up. Where is the audio? Right here.
And people have to question everything. Always question authority. I'm just going to say it time after time. So today we're going to look at the incredible progress that non-speaking children with autism are making. For years, parents were told that their kids didn't have a future, that they were cognitively impaired. And as I've said, that view is just plain wrong. And a lot of these non-speakers are dealing with neurological challenges that are very serious: apraxia, dyspraxia, body betrayal, OCD, motor impairment, Tourette's, all kinds of things. These are things that affect their ability to speak and to control their movement, but these are physical roadblocks, not intellectual roadblocks. And, these kinds of things like impulse regulation problems and Tourette's, or, type 1 diabetes, or all of the different comorbidities. The truth is that many non-speaking autistic individuals have an incredibly rich cognitive life, and that they're trapped in their own bodies. And so their extraordinary gifts are, shielded or, are hidden from the public. And that's, unimaginably difficult. And, so when the New York Times stands up and it backs the people, the government officials, the politicians, all of these different groups and the corporations who made our children suffer, who created this problem. These are people, these children, these parents, they were poisoned for a generation. And we as a country stood by and allowed it until Secretary Kennedy and thousands of mothers, MAHA moms, the mothers of autistic kids, but, so many people fought back. And the New York Times then wrote hit pieces about the people who were trying to undo the damage that had been done and to support people who had suffered. And the moms and the dads, they're heroes who've been cast as villains. And they should be on the front pages of newspapers. They should be on the Today Show, on Joe Rogan. They should have statues built to them. I mean, these parents and these kids have suffered in ways that are unimaginable. So make no mistake, autism is not easy. It's not kind. It's not like the movie Rain Man. It's not gentle. It's not something anybody would want. And these parents, thousands of them, and these children, they are fighters. They're warriors. These kids are fighting for their lives. So, when parents and, practitioners can start communicating with their kids through letterboards and keyboards, they finally get to meet these children. And these children finally get to express the things that are in their hearts, their humor, their intelligence, their emotion, their creativity, their dreams. So these young people aren't just surviving. Many of them, they can thrive. After all they've been through, they can thrive. But they need a society that's going to encourage that, that's going to reimburse that. They can go to college, they can write books, they can advocate for others, and they're changing the way that all of us, and that the whole world thinks about autism. So today is more about sharing these methods of communication. It's about inspiring all of you in the MAHA movement to stand up for the fundamental right of these children and of non-speakers of all ages to communicate and to be heard. So on today's show, you're going to hear from pediatric chiropractor Tony Ebel, from Dawn Marie Galvin, co-founder of the Speller's Method and an author, from J.B. Handley and his son, Jamie Handley, who wrote the book Underestimated, from Caden Larson, founder of Communication and Disability Empowerment and Sigma 2 Chi, from author Helena Hjalmarsson, the mother of my daughter, Lena Hjalmarsson Lyons, and author of the forthcoming memoir, My Life on This Planet. And then from Mary Holland, CEO of Children's Health Defense, from Elizabeth Bonker, Executive Director of Communication for All, and from functional medicine practitioner Daniel Pompa. Let's get started with pediatric neurologist John Gaetanis. Dr. Gaetanis got his medical degree from Dartmouth and Brown, top colleges in the country. His research focuses on better biomarkers and therapeutics for epilepsy, and he sits on the faculty of the Medical Academy of Pediatric Special Needs, an organization devoted to caring for children and young adults with autism and other chronic complex conditions. Welcome, Dr. Gaetanis.
Thanks for having me, Tony, and thanks for that great introduction to this really important topic. The first part, I want to give a little shout out to MAPS, the Medical Academy of Pediatrics and Special Needs. That's an organization that's really working hard to retrain physicians towards a different path of how to treat, heal, and recover kids with autism spectrum disorders, as well as a host of other neurological conditions. And it's a really critical part of what we have to do is to retrain physicians from all that they learned. And the reason that's important is, as you touched on, is that we have a lot of misconceptions within medicine. A lot of things that are accepted as doctrine that simply aren't so. I'll give you one real simple example is this term autism spectrum disorder. Now, what's the evidence that it's a spectrum? We really don't have any. I mean, it's a theory that is just unsupported. The idea of spectrum is that these are all the same condition or related conditions that just have a wide range. But what if these are completely separate conditions that are just being folded into the same title? One example of that is this issue of regression, which I think really helps distinguish many kids. Within regression, though, many of those kids are the kids who had motor symptoms. And we don't have a separate subclassification in autism for kids with a motor version of it or primary motor disability. And I think that's a really critical point to make because for many kids who have a motor disorder, this behaves a lot more like Parkinson's disease than it does, a developmental condition. And what I mean by that is in Parkinson's, people have trouble with initiating movement and coordinating movement. And so in Parkinson's, if you were to give an IQ test to somebody who was really struggling with movement, they might not perform very well, and you might miscalculate their intellect. So Stephen Hawkins did not have Parkinson's, but just think of Stephen Hawkins as a great example of that. He had a motor neuron disability, but the same idea is true. If we assessed his IQ based on his spoken language in his later days, one might have thought that he's very intellectually disabled. That's clearly not the case. So why this is important? Well, I think we could say we have a generation of kids who've been mislabeled as having intellectual disability, who actually have primarily a motor disability, and yet we've been treating them as though they have intellectual disability, and we've been preventing them or really hindering them from being able to unlock their potential. And we sometimes use the term locked in or locked in syndrome for people who can't initiate a movement, can't show us their intellect, and are somewhat trapped. And that's sadly where a whole generation of kids is locked in. And what's really critical, and this is part of what MAPS is really focused on, is how do we unlock these kids? Really having that goal to unlock them. And the two best ways to do that, one is through medical support, treating the underlying inflammatory, metabolic conditions that are underlying a large part of the developmental disability. If those aren't addressed, the kids are simply not going to be able to achieve their maximum development because they're living in chronic pain, GI distress, chronic allergies, other situations like that are really preventing their recovery and healing. So that's what MAPS teaches clinicians, and that's what we have to really all learn to do. Once that kid has gone through that medical healing, the next part is really the fun part, because that next part is when you can sit with the family and say, I think we're ready. I think we're ready to really begin to take that step towards spelling, towards unlocking everything that's always been in there. And for kids to do well with it, they have to be pretty well regulated. They really should not be in pain or major discomfort. But once you get a kid who's really ready to take on that step and is in a good place, once they start spelling, you begin to realize that this kid that they don't have an intellectual disability. They're smart. They're often the smartest kid in the room. B, they don't really have a social disability. It turns out many are some of the most empathic kids that I've ever met. And so they're communicating well, they're social, they're connected. And all of that really, at the end, makes you really wonder, do they even have what we call autism? And that's what I've wondered with so many of my patients. As you get to know them more, you realize they don't really meet those criteria, because really what they had was a motor disability. And unfortunately, they got trapped into this label that just was very inaccurate. And even worse still, and I'll end on this, is sadly, so many of these kids are placed on antipsychotics because we don't realize just how brilliant they are. And that's not the path we should ever take. I'll leave it on that, but we have a great future ahead. So I appreciate you having me.
Looks like we're tackling the subject of autism. Susan.
Subject of autism. So very interesting that he's talking about the non-speaking individuals. One of the things that Liam and I will share at the end of today's MAHA meeting is some links to some resources that are connected. For example, the telepathy tapes. Excellent podcast about non-speaking autism that will knock your socks off with what some of those children and adults who are non-speaking autistic are capable of if you give them a spelling board. What he was talking about in terms of addressing the underlying conditions is also really relevant, because when he talks about movement disorders, what comes to my mind, Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, Lewy body, all of those disorders are brain disorders. Somebody was just telling me this morning about a friend's husband who's been diagnosed with a Parkinson's-like syndrome. The sad part is that if you go to a conventional doctor, they don't have a treatment. The best they have is a medication to theoretically slow down the progression of the disease. They can give dopamine boosters, and that is supposed to help. But if that person were to go to a functional neurologist or a functional doctor, they're going to treat the root causes of the illness, and the person will get better. And some of the books are available, and we will show them to you at the end of the broadcast.
Outstanding. Okay, let's see what our next guest has to say.
You just heard in that introduction, I was a dad. I became a father just 2 weeks before I graduated from chiropractic school. And as it does for so many of us parents, all parents, the birth of our baby girl, about to go off to college in a few months, shaped everything. After Addison was born, I immediately shifted my professional focus from what I thought I was going to be, a pretty standard chiropractic sports injury doc, to signing up for advanced certifications in pediatrics, which would then lead me down the road and the deep dive into autism, ADHD, and these neurodevelopmental disorders. And thankfully, these classes were taught by other pediatric chiropractors and integrated pediatricians who were fully locked in on root cause, knowing that autism is both a spectrum with varying degrees of challenges to a degree, and a multifactorial, multi-systems issue that can't simply be blamed on genetics or better diagnosis alone. And like parents, I was first told to blame genetics. Children with a genetic code of autism were destined to struggle, need medication, therapy, ABA, that's it. They'll just get by with that. I knew immediately that was junk science. There had to be more to the science and the story, and there had to be a way that I could figure out to help these kids heal and fully thrive. So I kept digging deeper, just like parents. From there, I sat front row at the Defeat Autism Now, TACA, MAPS, Children's Health Defense conferences, and there I'd come to meet and learn from legendary impact makers who are now leading this MAHA movement, Secretary Kennedy, Dr. Larry Palevsky, and so many more. And once I started to learn about environmental toxins, antibiotic and vaccine overuse, the gut, brain, immune system, neuroinflammation, dysregulation, part of the autism story, it was all real as rain. But still, like many parents of children with autism, I had a gut feeling that something was missing. And what I'm about to take you through didn't come from conferences or research publications. It honestly came from sitting knee to knee with moms and actually fully listening to them. As pediatric chiropractors, I always joke we're the OGs of root cause and drug-free nervous system care. And it's that deep understanding of the nervous system that allows us to dig deeper, further upstream than anybody else. And with autism being a multi-system, whole body challenge, you have to start with the nervous system. You got to start by asking where the neurodevelopment gets thrown off track in the first place, or when it gets thrown off track. And it's way earlier than we're told. And so when I did exactly that, dive fully into hundreds, now thousands, actually tens of thousands of case histories in our clinic, here's what we found. over 85% of our patients with autism, whether level 1, 2, 3, profound, or whatever criteria you use, they have what we now call birth trauma. Like every medical intervention, these procedures can be life-saving, but they can also be life-altering. Forceps, vacuum, induction, epidural, C-section. There it was, hidden in plain sight the whole time with all these case histories. That physical, manual trauma, yanking, twisting, pulling on a baby's delicate neck, brainstem, vagus nerve, and autonomic air traffic control center, which is right there in the brainstem during the most critical first moments of life. Once the brainstem, spinal cord, vagus nerve are all thrown off track, the entire nervous system shifts into sympathetic dominance, dysautonomia, dysregulation, or what we in chiropractic call subluxation, and that's a disconnection. And from there, the 4 downstream systems and the key systems to development and health, sleep, feeding, regulation, off track from day one, gut, digestion, detoxification, offline, immune system suppressed, inflammation running rampant. And here's where the motor system shows up. That subluxation at the brainstem and within the neurospinal system throws off the development of motor planning, tone, and coordination. And that needs to be done first before speech, verbalization, socialization, and other brain functions come fully online later on. So here's what we have to understand, and the rest of this hour is going to make beautifully clear. These kids are not broken. They are the most brilliant, creative, innovative minds inside those kiddos. They are fully present, fully aware, fully capable. What's disconnected is the bridge between that brilliant mind and the body that's supposed to carry it out into the world, including the neurosensory motor execution of verbal speech. Birth trauma and subluxation don't take away the brilliance of these kids. They lock them into what we call the perfect storm of sympathetic dominance, dysregulation, and downstream dysfunction. And once we can understand that, everything changes. Tony, these kids don't grow out of early life challenges, colic, constipation, difficulty latching and breastfeeding, chronic ear infections, sleep disturbances, sensory issues, tantrums, meltdowns, developmental delays. Those grow into autoimmune and autism spectrum disorders. One struggle, one diagnosis, one specialist after another, yet no one looks deep enough into the nervous system or directly enough to find that foundational root cause. Until they meet us, we dig deep into that case history. We run the neurological testing through what we call our insight scans, thermal, HRV, EMG, and we find that nervous system dysregulation and subluxation, that foundational root challenge. And even though it's often missed in the biomedical integrative world, it's the one key that unlocks healing for the gut, for the immune system, and so many other things, so we can work in harmony with these kids, with their parents, and with other providers. So I'll leave you with this. The earliest, most obvious, yet overlooked root cause of these challenges doesn't show up in the genetic code. It may not show up on labs, and it may not only come from environmental toxins. That over-medicalization of the most exciting, impactful first moment of life, birth, is a trigger in that perfect storm. But here's the good news. Once we see it, we know it, we understand it, we can do something about it. Millions of families are finding their way through the storm with drug-free, root-cause, nervous system-focused chiropractic care. And that can be a foundational first step in the path forward. I'm so grateful to this MAHA movement and this moment in time that God has given us to finally restore hope, give answers, and get these incredible, brilliant kids the drug-free help and nervous system-focused solutions they so badly deserve and need. Thank you, Tony.
Wow, fascinating. He's going at it in a way that I've never heard before. He's saying that it's like a structural thing, the manipulation of the aggressive manipulation of the child affecting the vagus nerve, the spine.
Makes so much sense to me. And the interesting thing is, just by sheer synchronicity, not long ago I went to an open house of a chiropractor who's a friend of a friend. And that chiropractor is not just a garden variety chiropractor. He is a brain stem chiropractor, also known as a specific chiropractor. Apparently it is not a very well populated field. There are about 40 of them in the entire country. This one's in Hamilton, New Jersey. But at any rate, 3 million nerves apparently go through a little itty bitty opening that is somewhere in the cervical area of the neck. And if that area is not operating the way it should, and if any one or more of those 3 million nerves are compressed, it's going to compromise function. Makes complete sense to me. Lots more to say, but I can save it if we need to go back to the meeting right now.
Well, it looks like they're having technical difficulties as well. We had a little bit of trouble, had to restart the computer as we were firing up. But this is what happens in live television. Somebody pressed the wrong button.
Let's see, it's Hamilton, New Jersey, and it is balanced something or other. Let me see if I can just get it. But anyway, that's one way to go. And then the other thing that I said on a previous MAHA meeting or simulcast that Liam and I did is that the idea that autism can be healed, I 100% know is true, because I met a young man, 12 years old, boy, and I'm a school counselor. I was a school counselor for 8 years. I've worked with kids for the past 40 years in clinical settings. I would never have guessed that that child was anything but neurotypical. When I later met the dad and commented on what a lovely kid he had, a kid who made eye contact, initiated talk with me, carried on a delightful conversation, the dad told me that he had adopted that child out of the foster care system at about 3 years old, at which point he was nonverbal. He put him through, I don't know all of the protocols because we didn't have that long of a talk, but the dad was functional medicine minded and a scientist. And he put the kid through whatever protocols there are in terms of detox, I imagine the GAPS diet, other things that parents of autistic children use. And sure enough, 9 years later, this 12-year-old was indistinguishable, at least to me, from a neurotypical kid.
There's hope. That sounds great. All right, they're back online.
There is always hope.
No, you have to hand and eye movements first. And this is really important. You have to help co-regulate their body, which we know has sensory motor differences. And by co-regulating them with our presence and our voice, the speller can then focus all their energy on improving the accuracy of their looking and pointing. Dr. Elizabeth Torres has published lots of research on the sensory motor feedback loop and the neurological noise in the system of a person with autism. It's very informative research on this topic. But back to how it works. On the 3 boards, we start everybody on these stencils or letter boards where the alphabet is split across 3. That way the targets are much larger, and the learner has to get their eyes to the target letter, hold their gaze there, and then bring their finger or pencil to make contact. So eyes first and then connection second. You can think of it like teaching someone to play baseball, right? Before you can hit a home run, you got to get your eye on the ball, and then the hand has to swing and hit the ball and stay connected the whole time. And we're building that hand-eye coordination, that motor planning, again, starting at the shoulder level, not at the fingers level. And so what we see is once you start teaching that motor skill, you start progressing up a continuum to more complex letter boards. So you start on the 3 boards. Eventually you get to a letter board that has the whole alphabet on one board. You can move on from there to also a laminated letter board, and then a QWERTY keyboard, a regular keyboard, usually attached to an iPad so you have voice output. Now, once you're on 26 letters, you can spell anything. So this is when you can go from learning to actual application, and you can start having communication. You can answer multiple choice questions. You can answer questions that you don't know the answer to, that's open-ended. And what we see through spelling is that these individuals are cognitively no less than anyone else. They always had language and they had knowledge. What they were missing was a reliable motoric way to show it. And here's what makes this really significant. No one had been teaching kids this skill, the motor skill. The assumption was always that non-speaking autism or Down syndrome were intellectual disabilities. So when a child couldn't point to the correct flashcard,
Oops, looks like...
Oops. So anyway,
to
Liam, that's
identify
great.
a tree versus a house, the world would say,
Oh, my Lord, my
I don't know the
Lord.
difference. It must be a
We'll let them catch up. Yeah, they're having some difficulty. So, interesting.
But Liam, I was mentioning on the subject of nonverbal autism that the podcast that I rave about, the telepathy tapes, is absolutely amazing. It is. There was a researcher from Johns Hopkins. She heard enough anecdotal stories from parents of autistic children who apparently were on message boards with each other. And they would say things like, anybody get the feeling ever that your kid can kind of read your thoughts? And all the parents were sort of like, oh yeah. So they rigged up a study where they had the child in one room and they had the mother in a different room. And there was no, they were not able to see each other. They fed the mother numbers, 6-digit numbers from a random number generator, and had the child type the number on the speller board. And the child was doing it close to instantaneously, with the mother being told what the number was. There was no way that they were able to communicate that. But the podcast goes on over 10 episodes. It is next level mind-blowing. I highly recommend it.
And what's the name of the podcast?
And the telepathy tapes. And Liam, if you're able to access the document that you and I were working on together, it's towards the higher part of that. Some links that have to do with autism. I also met some individuals that were non-speakers at a children's health conference that was back in November of 2025 that was put on by the Children's Health Defense Fund. Caden, who was mentioned earlier on, I think the last name is Larson, but at any rate, a young man named Caden was there. And apparently that man was given a spelling board for the first time when he was, I think, 19 years old. And the first thing he typed was, "Thank God, now that I have this, I can go to college." He had not been able to communicate other than, I'm guessing, he had a rudimentary form of sign language that he used with his parents, because most kids with non-speaking do. So I was just blown away to imagine somebody has the intellectual capability that they're able to go to college, but they've been trapped in a way that they can't communicate.
Trapped.
It's just, I can't imagine what that's like, the torture.
In a prison. They're like literally imprisoned in their own body.
People assuming that you're not that bright. People assuming, but back to so are they talking, Liam? I don't want to cut into the meeting time, but I can.
No, they're having serious technical issues.
They sure are, but that's great, because then I get to tell my stories. So one of the things
there you go.
Podcast is a teacher who teaches in a classroom of nonverbal autistic kids talked about how one day she was late to work. And the reason she was late to work was that there were these wild turkeys that were crossing the road, and she had to stop. All the cars were stopped to let the procession of turkeys go by. And apparently when she got to work, the kid that she was really close to, where I guess there is some form of a telepathic connection, started teasing her about it non-verbally and flapping his arms like he was a turkey. So apparently this is really commonplace in the world of people who are raising, living with, or teaching individuals with non-speaking autism. And I imagine too, Liam, all the people in the world with various forms of dementia. I know when my dad had dementia, you could see the frustration, and he would sometimes articulate it. I could just see that the words coming out of the mouth were not the words that he was intending back here. And then he would go, and he'd say, "I can't do it. I can't." It was torture to watch him. It really was.
Well, it looks like they've got some sort of signal. They're on for the moment. Shall we see what's up?
On for the moment. Let's do it.
I'm really, I don't know if you guys heard that I already said it twice. I'm really happy to be here with this wonderful group of people who are fighting for our kids. And I want to start with just reading something that Lena, our daughter, said about letterboard. So I asked her, what does letterboard symbolize to you? What does the letterboard symbolize to you? And she wrote, "My letterboard is my realization of love and truth. She mastered my communication and loved my communication so much that she let me poke at her night and day. She's harvesting my inner world. One morning, she was so happy about me that she flew into my mouth. My lovely letterboard was so happy about me that she wanted to jump into my mouth and help me speak. She's thin and frail, but also adventurous." I thought that's a brilliant way to describe, how actually the letterboard and other ways of communicating, typing and so forth, actually is a bridge, and that will help mend this betrayal, if you will, or this disconnect between the brain and the body, and that actually letterboard spelling, as Soma often says, Soma Mukhopadhyay, who invented spelling from the beginning. She said that letterboard spelling is not it's not an end in and of itself. It's a way to move towards towards speech, and that speech is the end result. So that and I'm noticing that with my daughter Lena, our daughter Lena, she is very often verbalizing what she's spelling at this point. And the more she spells, the more she opens up the blocked motor pathways, and so that she can actually say the words that she's spelling. So that it's actually benefiting speech also. For all the people who are criticizing the method, that's just yet another argument that letterboard spelling is promoting everything we want to promote: integration, calm, of course, the most important of all, expression, and learning and interaction, and being able to really understand who our kids are. And there are so many things. Lena is, I think, very capable of capturing her understanding of the complexity of autism. Autism is brutal. It is brutal, and you go to places you never ever thought in your wildest imagination you'd have to go to, and see your kids suffering on that level. It's unthinkable, and I wish it on no one. I'm so happy and grateful for all the work that Bobby Kennedy is doing, and my ex-husband, and all of you, Mary Holland, everyone, to really begin to show the world how money and big pharma and all of that is impacting in very brutal ways our kids. But also Lena, in her book My Life on the Planet, she's been writing for maybe I think it's been a process of 3 years. It's a slow process, but she's been very, very motivated to do it, because she feels that everyone should hear from everyone should be supported in helping to understand who she is, and who her people with this condition, who they are. And she is describing education. She's talking about communication. She has a very long chapter in her book on words of advice to people on the sidelines, because the OCD and anxiety and the words that comes out of our kids' mouth are so persuasive. It's hard not to believe that when Lena says 5 times, olives, or I want to go and do, this or that, that it's actually not what she's thinking about at all. She is a very sophisticated thinker, and she's also so many more things than her cognitive ability, and she's for her, the realm between this world and other worlds is not that thick. So she has an understanding of who someone is on the soul level, and she can really she can read auras. She can actually connect with people that are very far away. Those are things we are not used to thinking about, but I believe that all of this is going to gradually become common knowledge. I think maybe maybe our kids are uniquely qualified to describe the other worlds or the magic that actually, if we knew it, we would all have access to. But that's also in Lina's book. But she's also describing education that is degrading and kind of humiliating. She has learned about Thanksgiving and Christmas 100 million times, and she knows about Thanksgiving and Christmas, but she's actually interested in literature and poetry and anthropology and religion and the humanities, and she is actually really very good at math. She has a lot of natural abilities, both cognitively and also empathically, and I think she's not afraid to describe both the brutality of autism and also the very special connectedness that very often she experiences, and the universal consciousness, the love that comes out of her in a way that feels very liberating, and a way that she can look at people and see who they are on a soul level. There's a lot of those kinds of, I don't know what to call it, that kind of connection that she's also talking about in this book. So yeah.
She's saying exactly what you were mentioning, Susan, this empathic feature of autism. I wonder if
you do it now. It's okay, but are you able to grab something off the chat that I just sent, because it's an illustration of a creation made by a non-speaking autistic kid, and it's pretty darn interesting. If I were a mom of a young kid,
we'll have to get to it after the
yeah. But yeah, I think the empathy is there. I mean, again, that podcast was so, oh boy, did I learn a lot, and really illuminating about the inner lives of folks with non-speaking autism and the ways that they're able to communicate with each other, even when they're not in the same room, even when they're not in the same state. The stories will just knock your socks off.
And they're mentioning, especially the chiropractor, who was saying that this isn't they don't necessarily have to be imprisoned forever. That there are ways and therapies to bring them so they can be free from the prison that they're in. So I wonder if does the empathic nature of their condition stay as they become more and more
that is
healed
such a good question. I have no idea. I mean, I think what we'd have to do is go to the cadence of the world and ask. I mean, I really don't know, and I don't know how long spelling boards have been around, but I get the feeling they're relatively new, because I didn't even hear of them until pretty recently. So I think that's going to be something for maybe researchers to keep an eye on, and the population of caregivers and teachers and people with autism themselves to be able to communicate that. But story after story after story of, go ahead, Lynn. Do we need to head back to the?
Yeah, let me see if I can pull up, is this what you were talking about, this here? Oops, not that there, but this here.
A little boy named Marcus, and apparently he makes these incredible creations with vegetables. And there we go. Here. There he is. And I believe they're sold on Tedu. I don't know if I'm saying that site correctly, but wow, if I were hosting a party for young children now, particularly knowing that young children were in a crisis of them not being able to eat anything other than nuggets. That's what I would be bring on the veggie train made by Marcus.
We're maxing out on the CPU here. Okay, so it looks like they've got another guest here. Let's take a look.
ABA school, and we started having these miracles with Jamie, in large part thanks to Don Marie, who everybody met just a moment ago, who helped Jamie become open. And what was amazing at the time was that even in a school that Jamie had attended for 8 years, there were many teachers and a speech language pathologist who literally would not willingly sit in the same room as Jamie to watch him spell. They drew a hard line because what I said as a parent, we were trying to get the letterboard into the school. And what I said was, as a parent was, well, just come watch him do it, right? Just see it for yourself. And the fact that otherwise well-meaning people were unwilling to even watch Jamie spell told me what resistance we would have to this method and to this process. And it's pretty amazing when I bring people into our home who are a little bit more open-minded and they watch Jamie spell for the first time. It's kind of like a religious experience or awakening. It's very emotionally intense for the people who bear witness because, and I remember when Del Bigtree did it. Del actually came to my house and filmed the whole show here in Lake Oswego. And Del had to watch for the first time a child spell at the level of sophistication that Jamie spells at. And, you know, he was deeply moved. They filmed it, etc.
Yeah.
And part of why I wanted to be on this show was that we got so frustrated that the New York Times allowed that editorial from Amy Lutz to run, because Amy's a well-known antagonist. She follows me around on message boards and constantly harasses me. She's a severe annoyance to this community, but even worse, she's a bald-faced liar. She states that what we're doing is facilitated communication, which most people would interpret as, you know, the physical grabbing of somebody's hand or arm to go to different letters. And I think we would all be, you know, pretty opposed to that unless it was part of a progression, as Don Marie talked about earlier. And what's really insane for somebody in my position, like 95% of the time, Jamie spells off of this that sits there on a table by itself with nobody touching it. When he's a little more nervous or we're in this kind of live environment, I actually mount his keyboard, right? So it sits there like this. But the one thing I don't do is I don't physically touch him or hold the keyboard or anything else. And if you look on Asha's website or anybody else's website, they've said for years that a mounted communication device is a reliable form of communication. And so I don't really understand what we're arguing about when people like Jamie exist and are communicating on a mounted device. And by the way, one of the first things that Jamie would say is that the holding of devices is what allowed him to progress to a mounted device. I think we all understand how training wheels work. It's the exact same dynamic at play here. And how many Jamies do we need before this stops being a question anymore? Because thank God there's so many people like everybody on this call who believe in our children. And it's been interesting. I've run into like biomedical doctors for whom realizing that these children are cognitively intact has changed the entire course of how they treat the children, because they're no longer worried about a cognitive disability. They're realizing that it's something going on in the motor area. And so I did ask Jamie right before the call. I'll let you type it again, dude, just so you could kind of, but I'll ask you the same question. Do you want to say anything about people who doubt that spelling is real? Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Yeah, you can do it. Yep, get there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Yep, get there. You doing it? Yep. Yep. Go ahead. Yep. Get there. Mm-hmm. You got it. Yeah, you got it. And then, mm-hmm. And then. Mm-hmm.
Get a lot.
So Jamie wrote, "Get a life." I think that kind of sums it up. The truth is that, like, I spend zero time in my day worrying about the haters. You know, Jamie communicates with us all the time on this letterboard many times a day. He gets his needs met. He's happy. He's joyful. He's having a great life. And I think, like many skeptics and doubters, refrigerator mother theory, whatever it was, this tidal wave is going to run all those people over. And honestly, Tony, it's you publishing our book, doing shows like this. More people join the movement. More people end up with a speller like Jamie, who's communicating on a mounted board. And again, how many Jamies do you need before Amy Lutz's opinion is viewed for the absurd gobbledygook that it really is.
So it seems like this spelling apparatus is the key, that they started with a big sort of panel where they focus their eyes, then they point, and then it looks like now that they can graduate to finer motor skills and to use a keyboard. Incredible information.
When he was talking
I'm sorry, I lost you, Susan. There you go. Go ahead.
It's so interesting when the dad was talking about the haters and the people who doubt. And I think about all the many, 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 many things in our world that when a thing is new, people fight it. People, the first person who said, hey, I think we can prevent the spread of germs by washing hands in between patients that we treat, that person was laughed out of the medical profession. People who have proposed all types of new innovations are told, couldn't be, you're crazy, it won't work. All of that. And then the process is, first it is mocked, then it is attacked, and then everybody tosses up their hands and says, yeah, of course, it's true. We knew it all along. So, you know, you see it all the time in alternative medicine. People like Joseph Mercola, who were talking about trans fats being bad and saturated fat being just fine for your health a decade or two before anybody else was saying it. And people said he was crazy. He's not crazy. It's just that people have this innate resistance to accepting something new, particularly when it means, whoops, I was wrong. And maybe I inadvertently damaged somebody or hurt them. So, you know, part of me wants to say shame on the therapist who wouldn't sit in the room with the kid. And then part of me wants to say, it is a human tendency, you know, I don't know what we do about it other than they tell the story and we all try to spread the word. I will put together a document that has all of these wonderful books, The Underestimated and Autism Miracle by J.B. Handley and Jamie Handley. And then the other one written by, I don't know how to say the last name on that one, but My Life on This Planet by Lena. You're going to have to help me on the last name pronunciation, Liam, but I wrote it down. So at any rate, I'll get those books and I'll put it so that we can put them up at the end so that people who are interested in going and buying or borrowing from the library those titles, I imagine we have an awful lot to learn from those kids.
Yeah, and well, like Robert Kennedy says, so autism just goes right into this narrative where there's no root cause, and then there's no more autism than there was before, just doctors are getting better at detecting it. That whole ridiculous narrative, autism flies in the face of it, like because like Robert Kennedy was saying, 20 years ago 1 in 10,000 people had autism. Today 1 in 30 people, you know, end up in autism, and that dramatic just explosion in autism cases is undeniable. Has nothing to do with the, you know, perfection of the, you know, medical establishment. All right, looks like they're back. Should we go take a look?
All right, yeah, let's do it.
Let's go take a look. Oh, they got it. I don't.
So Liam, I lost you. I can't find you on my computer. I might have to hop out and come back in. All right.
Can you see me now?
No, it's my fault. I got too many tabs open. I was trying to get some documents together. I had you like all at one place, so let me.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. I'm
the problem is if I come
holding
back,
on the fort here. It's cool. It's the host will be right back too. It says so.
Host will be right back too. Okay, so
yeah.
Yeah, so where were we? We were talking about non-speaking autism, the books that some.
We were talking about the ridiculousness of the medical community trying to say that, you know. Here we go.
I like that subject, Liam, right? Like we get no fun at all.
What's that?
But
I'm sorry?
I said it's not like you and I enjoy that subject of talking about it, but it's so true. And I do think that younger doctors are more open and more familiar with the patient who's going to be a pain in the butt like me, look stuff up on the internet and go in and say, here's the study I found, I want to talk about that. But I'm telling you, back in the day when I was first starting to try to address my health issues, you mention an herb or a acupuncture or homeopathy to a traditional doctor, and the amount of derision, the amount of scornfulness, which is really unfortunate. I really appreciate the quality in somebody that I don't know about it, but I'm just going to keep an open mind, because who knows? I don't know kind of what makes people feel they have to automatically be a naysayer when they don't know a thing about what it is that the person's talking about. So.
Yeah, and if I want my original sin to be addressed with, I'll go to the Catholic Church. I don't need to say that I am genetically disposed to a disease because I suck it from my very core. It's absurd. Right. And the fact that the medical establishment demands that we accept their ridiculous positioning, it's just intellectually corrupt and just void of any intellectual relevance. Okay, looks they're having such a hard time.
They sure
looks
are.
like they're back.
So Liam, I don't know how the CPU situation is, but Nicholas Hulsher, if I'm saying that correctly, has a master's in public health, and he posts an awful lot of fascinating stuff. And one of the things that he did post, I just saw it today, was about causes of autism. So Liam, if I can figure out how to get back to the Streamyard link.
All right. Well, it looks like they're back online. Let's see what they have to say here.
All right.
If his hands and feet were numb, they would back down on it. He had to tell them every time we went in, and he had chemo every single week.
Oh, they're back offline again. Did you find me? Am I there?
No, I have not found you. I don't know how it's possible, because I always put you in one place. I put you all the way at the end. Oh, wait. See, like a little... there you are. I found you. All right. So if
there I am. Let's give a round of applause.
Woo, found you.
We're back.
This is the causes of autism. Can the CPU stop handling it right now?
What's that? What are you saying?
So I just put something in the chat, and if you think the CPU will allow you to...
Yeah, it's not going to work. It's not.
Okay.
I tried last time, and it broke the stream.
Okay, then I'm going to tell you what it says. So it is a study that was just put out by... Come up with it, Susan. You can do it. It was put out by pretty reputable place. But anyway, it had this lovely graph and in a circle, and about the different causes. Genetics were not the biggest part for autism at all, which also makes sense to me, because you need the genetics to load the gun, you need the environment to pull the trigger. So I have the genetics to go the autism route. I'm homozygous for MTHFR, but of the many things that are wrong with me, autism does not seem to be one of them. So it looked at everything from environmental toxins to vaccines to genetics. Trying to think there were a lot of factors, and then a lovely kind of circle chart thing. So we can take a look at that at the end though, Liam, is that correct?
Yeah, once we looks like they're having some serious problems. Once I can close the Zoom call, which takes up a tremendous amount of resources, then we can focus on some of these items. But what I've heard from the doctors that I follow, that the genetic predisposition of disease has been debunked, and what they talk about is the epigenetic function that arises, that if you pull selenium out of your diet and your sister's diet and your family lineage, that it might express itself in muscular dystrophy. If you take selenium out of my diet, it might express itself in hypothyroidism or something like that. Our genes are designed epigenetically to assess and manifest stress or the exposure to toxins or the deficiencies in ways that are related to our genetics. But this fact that we have some sort of original sin to whatever it is, and that like I think one of these actresses actually had a mastectomy because she said that some doctor told her she was predispositioned for breast cancer or something like that.
Right.
And so I totally reject this premise that there's any sort of root cause for a disease. There's root causes that happens when there is an attack on the system, and I believe there's root cause if you have a deficiency of.
But I do think that, like, I don't totally discount the genetics of the situation, because let's say you take, however many individuals, and they're all exposed to the same environment, well, close to the same environmental stressors. Some are going to develop certain conditions and some are not. So, for example, schizophrenia. There was a family that had 12 children. 6 of them developed schizophrenia, and that family donated their DNA to the National Institute of Mental Health so that they could look into it and look at the genetics of it. So I do think that if I had to guess what's going on, I would say that all of the individuals in that family were born with whatever the genetic glitches are that predispose one to schizophrenia. However, for whatever reason...
Right. Well, according to these doctors, what they say is that this family had a diet which was or this family was exposed to whatever triggers, and so this schizophrenia was expressed because of a nutritional deficiency, or it was expressed because of an environmental toxin. So yes, genetics do have a role, but if that deficiency was supplemented, or if that toxin was removed, is like what these doctors that I follow say, is that it wouldn't just spontaneously generate, like, something out of a religious text. All right. So yeah, they're still having trouble.
Wow. So Liam, I totally agree with you, because if you look at the twin studies, clearly when you look at identical twins, they have the same genetics and the same DNA. But a pair of identical twins, one of them has developed, let's use schizophrenia as the example, the other one not. So, I mean, I think that kind of spells it out right there.
That's exactly the type of data that they point to, is this data. There's been tremendous data on following, like, twins, identical twins, and they say the data, it just shows it's explicit that you don't find these twins both developing tuberculosis or both developing whatever it is later on in life.
Well, correct. And and we also know that childhood trauma that is strongly linked to the development of a wide variety of health conditions down the road in adulthood. Autoimmunity is one of them. I mean, people with an autoimmune disorder are way more likely than the average population to have had a significant amount of childhood trauma. I guess everybody has a degree of it. But it's really interesting stuff, kind of how our genes interact with the environment. But clearly something's going on, because our kids are so much sicker these days, and the conditions that they're acquiring them at younger ages. I almost dropped my teeth. I was listening, I had the television on the other day, and a commercial came on, and it was for a drug that was used to treat autoimmune disorders. And it said this drug has been approved for individuals as young as 6 months of age. And I thought, wow, that did not used to be a thing. Like, I'd never even heard of an autoimmune disorder when I was a kid growing up, which granted was 100 years ago. But, and these days, so many kids have autoimmune diseases, and serious ones, where they're really pretty ill. They're pretty impacted and dealing with a degree of chronic pain by the time they're 10, 15, 20. It's criminal.
Yes, criminal. Yes, that's...
Well, and it's criminal because, let's just keep going, Liam, because you and I can just go on this topic, because we know that and by we, I mean the people in this country, our government, we are not providing our kids with the same safeguards that kids who are born in Europe or other developed countries are having, so that ingredients that are outright banned in other countries are completely allowed in this country. ingredients that in other countries get a warning label of, hey, this ingredient has been associated with difficulties with concentration, attention, and focus. Hello, we don't put that label on any types of our foods. We just keep producing the food and then scratching our heads and saying, wow, got a lot of kids who seem to need ADD meds these days. I'm ready to slam my head against a wall. I'm so frustrated.
Yeah, and then especially with Bob Schwartz and his story giving adult Ritalin and having those
Concerta, actually, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, what was the name of the drug?
Concerta. It's the same family.
Concerta.
There's stimulant meds. And one thing I want to say, just in case people are confused, why would you give a stimulant med to a kid who's already hyperactive? Because it stimulates the part of the brain that helps you focus and concentrate. So that's why it's counterintuitive, but stimulant meds settle the person down. But go ahead.
Yeah,
you
that's interesting. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, and then after he sort of started to put together, it might be this drug that hypes up the immune system. The doctor then just gave him a cocktail of drugs to, suppress the immune system. And he says with the Ambien, or I'm not sure what the
all types of things. Yeah, I'm going to back up though, just so our listeners know that Bob Schwartz is somebody that Liam and I have gotten to know, and we've gotten to know him in part because we've had him onto our podcast twice so far, and we're gearing up for number 3. So Bob Schwartz is the survivor of a what's known in the field as an adverse drug event, which is when an individual takes a medication as prescribed by the doctor. The medication itself causes some form of harm, and that harm could be anything from psychosis to suicidality, homicidality, or, God forbid, cardiac issues, death, you name it. Bob's was more in caused him to kind of go off.
She's on a flight, but really want.
Oops. Go ahead and continue.
And so, Bob, this happened to Bob 22 years ago, and he was somebody who was really thriving in life. He was blessed to have been born into his Schwartz family of 10 kids or 11. I get him and Leanne mixed up, but a whole mess of kids and a very devoted mother. And, he got to be 40 and was living his best life. He was a high performing something or other.
Executive in WorldCom.
Yeah, and he was, sharp intellectually, had a happy marriage, kids, just thriving in every way. And when his back started hurting because he had an injury from playing golf, he went to the doctor about the back pain. And towards the end of the appointment, the doctor said, are you having trouble concentrating at work? And Bob said, yeah, because, the back pain is getting in the way. And the doctor said, well, you probably have ADD. Here's a medication that will help. Bob, like a lot of people, and especially this is 22 years ago, he just thought, well, the doctor's telling me this will help. Why don't I take it? Didn't look into it, didn't do any due diligence. I am not blaming the victim at all because he didn't know what he didn't know. So what Bob did not know is that doctor, who was a general doctor prescribing a psychotropic, which in my opinion should not happen, psychotropic should be the province of psychiatrists and psychiatric nurse practitioners, gave him a dose that was 3 times higher than what the manufacturers of Concerta recommended, a dose that could have been lethal. In Bob's case, it did not kill him, but it did cause him to promptly become psychotic.
Right, and it completely destroyed his life. To 20 years later, he's still, suffering the effects. All right, it looks like they've made it back. Should we have a look? Listen.
So we have Elizabeth. I wish we could see what she's spelling as she spells it.
Yes, I have her audio up. I don't know. Oh, it's there. Okay, good.
I am excited to discuss the progress non-speakers are making to protect our human right to communicate. We are also facing some challenges where we need your help. First, non-speakers had a victory at our inaugural meeting of the Interagency Autism Coordinating Committee on April 28th. Recommendations covering safety issues, co-occurring medical conditions, and profound autism were approved and sent to Secretary Kennedy. These recommendations are victories for autism families, and I will highlight the last one because it ties into our legislative efforts. The committee voted to define profound autism for federal policy and research to be individuals who are minimal or non-speaking and who require continuous or near continuous care. The definition explicitly excludes intellectual disability. Non-speakers who type have previously rejected the label profound because it conflated non-speaking with intellectual disability. I hope the autism community can come together with this new and improved understanding that non-speaking does not equal non-thinking. Next, I would like to discuss legislative matters, and the drama is worthy of a movie. Last June, the New York State Assembly unanimously passed the Communication Bill of Rights. Yes, I said unanimously. This near impossible feat showed the power of a bill that asserted the basic human right to communicate, without mandates and without any funding requirements. We thought we were on the path to victory when the chair of the Senate Disability Committee, Patricia Fahey, asked to sponsor the bill. She said she would make the Communication Bill of Rights a priority. But instead of working with self-advocates, she listened to corporate interests that have captured the office for people with developmental disabilities. Who are these corporate interests? The American Speech Hearing Association and Applied Behavior Analysis, billion-dollar businesses that control autism services. They don't want families to have choice even when thousands of hours of expensive ABA and speech therapy are not working for their children. 1/3 of individuals with autism are like me and cannot speak. We can be taught to type with one finger, and families can find everything they need on the Communication for All website, free of charge. So, what happens next with our Communication Bill of Rights? Senator Fahey guts it by adding that communication must be autonomous and validated by an unnamed third party to be recognized. This is a clear violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. If Stephen Hawking had needed someone to hold his keyboard for him to access it, his voice would have been silenced by her amendments. We have tried to explain these issues to Senator Fahey, but she refuses to listen to us, the people who will be silenced by her amendments. This leaves us no alternative but to find another senator on the Disability Committee who will stand up for people with disabilities and reintroduce the bill as it was passed in the Assembly. And for that to happen, we need New York Senate leadership, Andrea Stewart Cousins and Michael John Harris, to reintroduce a Senate bill to match Assembly Bill 7363C. Even if you don't live in New York, please call and email Senate leadership today. They know this is an historic first in the country, and everyone in the disability community is watching. We need this legislative victory in New York because non-speakers are under attack across the country. In California, regional centers distribute self-directed funding for people with disabilities, and they are now rejecting any activities for individuals who communicate with a letterboard. Imagine if they told deaf people they could no longer use sign language. Communication for All is fighting back in California with our local partners, including Spellers Freedom Foundation. Similar discrimination is occurring in Massachusetts and Wisconsin, and we believe these state actions are worthy of a class action lawsuit. State disability offices are breaking federal law. All these battles at the state level could be avoided if we had federal guidance from HHS protecting people with disabilities. Please go to our website, communicationforall.org, and sign our petition asking for HHS guidance to protect communication rights for people with disabilities. These two actions, contacting New York leadership and requesting federal guidance, will make a difference. Together, we shall overcome.
Wow.
Wow is right. And she's so,
wow.
I'm so glad, like, she just sounds like a kick butt person. You're right, like class action lawsuit, because she made such a good point about Stephen Hawking's. Like, it's not, if you have a perfectly good brain, you can't help it if the musculature around your mouth doesn't work to form words. And our world is really, honestly, quite hostile to people with various forms of disabilities. Yeah, and I think you don't know that until you spend a little time with someone with a disability. I know that my eyes got opened when a family member of mine wound up in a wheelchair, and I learned just how unfriendly the world is if you're in a wheelchair. And I have no idea about what it's like, but I imagine it is. It's even beyond that. Like these people with perfectly good intellects are being treated like they're not a person, and that they don't have things to say that are worthy of being said and worthy of being heard. And it's unconscionable. So I hope we can go back and get her petition up, Liam, because I didn't quite get the name of it. It was a petition of something.org for spellers' rights. I'll look and see if I can find it. And any of our viewers, if you caught it or if you know what it is, if you can put it in the chat for me and Liam, that way at the end of the show, we can put it up and hopefully lots of people will, access it and go on and sign.
And it's a revelation to me because I thought that autism was in fact a mental disability as well as a physical disability. I had no idea these kids were trapped in their body as a prison. So it's a definite revelation for me personally. All right, so we see what Dr. Pompa has to say. Okay.
What contribution could I have here? Look, I was pulled into this two ways in my passion around this topic, and that's why I took the time out to be here tonight or today for you all. Number one, I was neurotoxic myself, and that led to everything that I teach today. 20 years of teaching doctors from pain to purpose is my story. And being, unexplainable illness, neurotoxic illness, everything that God showed me through my own battle, I've been blessed to teach. So I didn't choose it, it chose me. I didn't also choose to adopt a boy who was vaccine damaged. And when my wife and I would go to their house, we were like, boy, I can't imagine, having to deal with Dylan. Well, we got that opportunity. And what a blessing it's been in so many ways, because Dylan lost, my two oldest adopted children, age 7 at the time. They lost their parents tragically, and we adopted them. Dylan was one of the twins. And I can tell you it was a journey, but what I learned from my own battle, I started applying to Dylan. And Dylan was a speaker, but he was very, very sensory integration, Asperger's. He wasn't able to sit in a normal classroom by any means. But I just went for what I did to myself. I looked at this as a neurotoxic condition, which you've heard from many speakers it is. And I started doing exactly what I did for myself. And miraculously, we watched Dylan improve. Look, I believe in my heart the future of this is getting rid of the causes. And someone, I think it was Dr. Tony, said earlier that, look, this is a perfect storm. And oftentimes you see physical entrapment, birth traumas, neurotoxins that have been introduced either via vaccines or other sources, even from mom. And many other environmental sources, kids growing up in moldy homes. And anyways, these things set up this perfect storm. But, one of the things that I've taught now for 20 years, if you go after the cause, then God designed the body to heal. And I feel like right now I'm a little critical of where we are in functional medicine, if we will, alternative medicine. I feel like we, especially with this condition, we've targeted the gut. Remember, the gut is the second brain. Where I feel like we've fallen short is getting to the first brain. And that's what I wanted my message to be, because I believe herein lies the hope. This is a condition. God designed our bodies to heal, and there's no doubt about it that certain pathways are damaged from this perfect storm. But, one of the reasons why Spellers works is because what are we doing? We're engaging another pathway. Right? And I believe that neuroplasty is actually occurring. I believe that Spellers is not only obviously effective for the reasons that were said, but I do believe it's actually creating a neuroplastic situation where the brain can actually start to regenerate. Well, what if we remove the things that are blocking it to regenerate? And look, I feel like I was an adult looking out of these child's eyes with my neurotoxic illness. And then when I, was blessed to be the father of Dylan, we had many conversations where I was like, Dylan, I know exactly how you feel right now. And, and watching him get better and better as we remove the neurotoxins from the brain. And that's what I'm known for for teaching is my brain phase of detox and how to remove neurotoxins out of the brain in the nerve system in general. I think we're battling oftentimes the damage that's occurred, right? Because again, I had neurotoxic illness after my brain was developed. These poor kids, their brain wasn't developed. And so, now we're looking for development. But what is the brain, what is this healing system that God put us incapable of? I believe it's capable of healing, but we do have to remove the interference. But I want to finish the point I was making earlier, that a lot of the focus has been on the gut, but it's the second brain. I do believe that we have to pull the focus back here. It's both important. The gut is important. I'm not saying it's not. I give many lectures on the microbiome and the importance of it and how that communicates with the first brain. But ultimately, I think we do have to pay attention to the original brain one, that I believe and this is what I've experienced, when we heal this, now all of a sudden the gut actually starts to heal. So I do believe we have to go back here. I want to leave with this one note. I've watched a lot of these conditions improve, not even just by getting rid of the neurotoxins, but also of giving the brain the most important thing that it needs in healing, and that's fats. Getting rid of the bad fats, all the seed oils, it's a huge thing because these seed oils stay in the body, not days, not even months now. We're talking about years, and they really cause a lot of disruption in the cell membranes and ultimately the big brain itself. But replacing those with functional oils in a 4-to-1 ratio, and there's a product out there, find it online, from Body Bio. It's their PC 4-to-1 oil. I can tell you it's a miraculous product because of the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 that targets the brain and the cell membranes, but also PC in itself is very, very helpful for not just the cell membranes, but the brain. So that fat exchange, I call it lipid therapy, is really important part of this as well. But I just want to leave with that if we remove the interference, God designed our bodies to heal, and then we give the brain what it needs. And I believe it is the future. And I just want to thank you, Tony, for having me. And it was worth being here this late on this subject.
Yes, I agree 100%. Focus on this. Stop being stupid. Go to church to manage your original sin, you freaks. Anyways, yeah, but he brings up
Liam, you're kind of funny, you know that?
Great point. What's that?
You're funny.
Yeah, but he makes a...
We raised
80% of your neurotransmitters are made in your gut. All right?
I agree.
Come on. Bring it in there.
I agree. And let's go back to fat's important. Fat is what your brain runs on. And what did we do as a society? We went fat-free during what, Liam, the 80s, 90s?
I remember my dear mother, it had to be in the 60s or 70s, taking a scoop of this Crisco stuff, this what was first created by Procter & Gamble as synthetic oil for submarines in World War I, and putting it in the thing because she heard, the commercial, the Heart Association. I still remember that stupid commercial. The Heart Association tells you, to be careful with whatever. So
saturated fat, right. I mean, I remember at the time of my wedding, which would have been the late 90s, I got married in 97. You were not supposed to be eating real butter. You were not supposed to be eating anything with fat in it. And my wedding was out of state from where my grandmother lived. And she came and she stayed in a hotel. And I remember her saying, Susan, she said, I did everything. I had I had eggs, because at the time you weren't supposed to eat eggs. I had bacon. I had real butter on my toast, because at the time you were supposed to have margarine. And she said, and I loved every minute of it. It was like her big rebellion.
Absolutely. I never went margarine. I always went butter. And like with this chicken skin, you're not supposed to eat the chicken skin and the egg white. You're only supposed to be the egg whites. All
But
right,
then
let's
one
see
real,
what
I
Russell
think
Brand.
one sentence, and then we go to Mr. Brand, which is part of, like, we bear responsibility, our society and our government, for creating this epidemic of neurodegenerative diseases, because we told everybody to stop eating fat. They complied, and then a couple decades later, here we are with explosions of our Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, just all the things.
With a heavy dose of stupidity. All right, Russell Brand, what's up?
Mr. Brand,
when we were at hospital. And thank you, Dr. Oz and Lisa Oz, for the help that you gave us in ensuring that we got the best possible care there. And young Gabe, he has cerebral palsy, but whatever challenges a child has, one of the things I've noticed is a tendency to drift into rote ways of communicating that diminish the dignity of the child. And it seems like, on the basis of what we're learning from this call and from this work and from this film, the Speller Freedom Foundation, is that using new communicative tools, the potential of these children can be unleashed. And Nikki, tell me, just as a mum and as a nurse, or what you felt during that, and try and hold that so you can be seen, my love.
Hey, no, I was just so impressed. I didn't realize that these tools were available. And I think anytime you can unlock a child's ability to communicate and be a part of the world around them and know that they are existing in the world, but like getting them to connect was just so amazing to hear y'all's voice. I can't wait to go home and share with my kids and show them these tools that are available. I'm so impressed and just impacted by this, and excited for what you guys are doing, and really excited that the word is getting out. And so keep it up, you guys. Y'all are amazing.
Yeah, tell us what we can do over here, because otherwise I'll just talk about myself, my own problems all the time. And I really recognize that when there's something like this that's positive, where you get to see liberation, where we get to participate in success, that we must encourage one another. Tony, I know this is something that's affected you personally and familiarly, and I always think you wear that really rather well and beautifully. You're a good example of a loving father and an advocate for people without ever making it a big deal, mate. Is there anything that we can do to help you, like with our wider channels, in my capacity as a condemned criminal?
Yeah, well, like I said, there's no greater badge of honor when there's so much deception, so much lying, so much evil in the world, to be vilified and prosecuted and attacked.
I think Russell Brand has a child that has a mild case of autism, I believe. But
yeah, so I pulled up the Spellers Freedom Foundation, and whenever it's the right time, we can get into that. And I just posted on X and told everybody to go ahead and sign that petition, because it is absolutely not fair that, you think about it, like she used the example of Stephen Hawking's. If somebody has Lou Gehrig's disease, we all know they're in there. Just because they can no longer form the words, they no longer, eventually they're going to lose the capability to swallow, because the muscles are going. But the intelligence is there, the brain is there, the spirit is there, the soul is there. That's a human. So we need to be cognizant of that and act accordingly.
And what is the legislation? I forget exactly what they're trying to.
I'm not quite sure. I'm going to look and see if I can find it. So if I go on the Spellers, got too many tabs open, Liam. Okay, are they finished, or are we still with them?
We're still with them. They're still. They started to talk about Russell Brand's. He's got a trial date coming up, so I figured that was a little off subject. We could continue talking about.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I did not know
autism.
that Russell has a child with some form of a challenge, but that makes
I
sense. That
think
would explain
so.
it. So, yeah.
I
All
believe.
right. So
But
where are we?
yeah, so yeah, I had zero idea that these kids. It's almost like that movie with Robin Williams and Robert De Niro, where they give these people the drug, and then they're back,
Yep.
totally coherent and can talk, and then they regress again. So it's kind of like that, being trapped in a body that just won't cooperate while the brain is. That must be a special type of hell to go through.
I would imagine it is a special type of hell. And the thing that makes me so sad all the time, Liam, and you tell me if it happens to you, is that there's so many people who are affected and impacted, and the ship has kind of sailed. Like if they had the financial resources to pursue functional medicine, they wouldn't have to be in the situation that they're in. And I see it now because of my age. I'm pushing close to 60, that people who are my age, you're starting to be able to see the ones where a little bit of cognitive stuff is starting, or the REM behavior sleep disorder that then is a prodromal syndrome to Parkinson's. And, there's nothing really you can do if, I'll try to be careful not to proselytize too much and be obnoxious. And it just makes me sad, though, when people just put their hand out for the conventional pharma treatment, which I know is going to be a sad road to the end, because I've seen it before. I know what it's like, and it's not pretty. Do you have
There's
that,
no
Liam,
way
where-
you're pushing 60. There's no way you're pushing 60.
Except I am.
Are you really?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, I'm 58. I'll be 59 in a couple of months.
Oh, wow. You look
What
great.
did I pass for, Liam? What did you think I was?
I thought you were in your 40s. I didn't think you were pushing 60.
Why, thank
Wow,
you.
you look
All right,
fantastic.
we can keep doing this together, Liam, if you're going to tell me I look like I'm in my 30s.
Wow. They say black don't crack, but I guess beige don't age. All right.
But do you get that, Liam, where you see
That's
people
great.
in your life and you're like, but if you would just, but you have to keep your mouth shut because it's not your life and they're not wired that way. It's such a hard balance for me. Do you have that?
Well, yeah, I there was a big sort of like I was going to sell supplements. I found these supplements which were just absolutely fantastic, and I could see in my own health how they were transforming these chronic conditions into much more manageable situations. And so I thought, if you have the answer to the problem, that's like the entire battle, but that's just a tiny little bit of the battle. Everybody is in their own sort of rapture of whatever it is that they believe. And so it's like there's just no way you can, if somebody's really rooted in their belief systems, there's just doesn't matter how transformative your story is, they're just going to.
So rooted, I understand. And rooted, I just tell myself they're in a different, you got to respect that it's their life. They're going to do it their way. Where I really struggle is the person who goes, oh, that's so cool, I want to know more. And they read the book and they're on board and they don't do it.
Yeah.
It's very, very like.
Well,
very,
I think some people, they're just I've found that some people like to be sick. They like the sympathy. They like the drama. They like to talk about their meds. They, enjoy this. They don't have to achieve anything because they're sick. They don't have to be successful because they're sick. So they hold on to their diseases like this big comfort
identity, right.
blanket. Yeah, and it was a tremendous sort of realization for me to realize that mindset exists. All right, it looks like we're saying goodbye. Should we hear if they talk about how their podcast was going in and out? Let's hear what they have to
You made me want
say.
to sing that song from The Sound of Music, Liam. The where the kids sing goodnight to the at the party.
Right. Yes.
To you, and you, and you.
Exactly. All right. Let's see what they had to say.
And we need all of your help. And then please call Andrea Stewart Cousins and ask her to reintroduce the assembly version of the communication bill. So important. Look at our legislative tracker, sign the petition to request federal HHS guidance to protect communication rights. Follow the work of all of these incredible non-speakers, read their books, check out their websites, look at their organizations, donate to them. The links to do all of these things are going to be part of the follow-up email. And thanks again for joining us, for bearing with us, for sitting through 90 minutes. And we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday at 4 p.m.
Let's give them a round of applause. Okay, so I think now we can maybe. What's cool is I was watching you type. I've got your Google Docs open here, so I was watching you type as you were putting in things to look at. So we can go ahead and
I have quite a list. But you can let's just focus on the autism stuff. I thought we were going to be talking about psychotropics.
Well, here, let's take a look. Okay, so we want to remove that, and then when we want to add your, we want to actually stop sharing the screen. There we go, and then we want to go like this. All right, let's give it up. All right, where are we? All right, there are we.
Right now, Liam has a vault.
Look at that. What's that?
I said, are you in the vault right now?
I'm not. I was, but I came out through a secret door. All right. So, all right. Let's see what this does to the. How we doing here? Oh
right,
man, looks like this is the telepathy podcast, and then you wanted to. You tell me, autism spectrum news.
Let's just kind of go through them one by one. The autism one. So the telepathy tapes, Liam just showed you. You're looking. It's a podcast. You can find it on, I think, everywhere. Spotify, name other podcast places, Liam. I think it's on YouTube.
Yeah,
as well.
wherever podcasts are played.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But listen to all 10 parts. Do not stop after the first one because it gets even wilder. It is really
unveiling the hidden world of telepathic communications in this. Wow, that sounds merging of consciousness, communication between friends and groups, love with a twist of telepathy. That sounds like a really super interesting. And this is the telepathytapes.com podcast. Wow, I had no idea this existed.
Oh, Liam, it will blow your mind. It really will. Like, I know you're busy, but if you have the time, give it a whirl. Because there's such a spiritual component. Like at first you think you're just going to get your mind blown because holy moly, these kids can sort of, I don't know, read their mom's mind, but as those random number generators are spitting out 6-digit numbers, the kids in the other room does not have access to the mom, and the kid is typing it like seconds after the mom has been fed the number. But then it goes into this whole spiritual component, which, I don't want to give too much away, but just watch it, listen to it.
Oh, maybe one of these days we'll play one and comment. Are they really long? Are they hours long? Or are they just like little?
I don't remember because it was like at least a year ago that I listened to it. But yeah, that would be really cool. We could put together something where we bring in. Oh, I know what we can do, Liam. I know exactly what we can do. We can actually bring in a speller because I made a smidgen of a connection with one at that conference. So we could bring in like a speller, maybe a parent of an autistic individual. Who else? Like speech therapy, people who work with autistic individuals and kind of, look at the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Fascinating. Yeah. Okay, so then there was Autism Spectrum News. Rights and challenges for autistic people with communication.
Is that petition that whatever her name was talking about in there, the petition to protect the communication rights.
Communication first. That looks like you got it.
Okay, great. So that one, friends, if everybody can go sign that, if you were as convinced as I was that it is a worthy cause. And Liam, you said I thought they already were protected under the ADA. I imagine autism is protected. I think, if I'm not 100% positive, but I think what might be at issue is the typing something that they are doing in a self-guided way? Did you get that or not? Or I guess not, actually.
Yeah, there was this some sort of controversy with this person calling out the first gentleman, saying, "You're guiding his hand." He's like, "Well, you're starting out and the kid can't, get it there. Of course you're going to start out guiding his hand, but you can see now he does it by himself." So there was some sort of strange drama about guiding the kid's hand, like you're, like it's a magic trick and you're doing the spelling and the kid is just faking it.
Is it moving on its own, or are you shoving it around, right?
Yeah, that sounds, I don't know why anybody would.
Autism Spectrum News and then the Spellers Freedom Foundation, just another resource that I gather is advocating for the same thing, that just because their communication comes in a different way, like, who are we to mandate that it has to come with words through the mouth, Oh, that one doesn't look so good.
That's all right. That could have been my fault.
The next one, Liam, I want you to go to The Causes of Autism by Nicholas Hulsher, because that one...
There we go. Sellers.
Yeah.
Human Rights Campaign. Yeah, so they were promoting this on the broadcast.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can remember any of the people we saw. I'm not sure. Anyways, okay, so the next one, your cases of autism, McCullough, is that what you wanted to...
yeah, but I think I sent you the link to Nicholas's LinkedIn page.
Okay. Yeah, let me
see if I can... Are you able to pull it off the chat? Because I'm putting the appropriate link in the chat right now.
Yeah, okay.
Or you know what? Is it better if I go back? I'll just put it in the Google Doc. Why don't I do that?
No, it's good. It's good. I got it. It's better if I copy and paste rather than call up the browser. That seems to be the move we need to make. Yeah, this guy's awesome. This guy's awesome. Outstanding.
Wouldn't he be fun to have?
How do you say his name?
I have no idea. I'm going to guess Hulsher.
He's fearless. This guy is fearless.
He is fearless. And he's relentless. He posts all the time. So if you go to...
And he posts in short form. I see him on Instagram. I see him everywhere. And he's just...
Yeah, he is everywhere. So are you able to get to the one that he posted? I think it was... Go back up and go to his posts and hit all, not his featured posts, but because there's one that he just did, I think it was last night, and it was the causes of autism. And
yeah, I went to sign up to be his friend. He doesn't know if he likes me yet, so we'll see.
Okay, well, he's going to like you. There's no reason not to like you. So I'm not seeing it yet.
All right.
Here, I'll tell you what.
All right.
And I tell you what, I'm putting it. How about go to the next one? And I think the next one on the Google Doc has it now.
All right. We didn't see you paste it.
This one that I just added, like the little link right under there.
Yeah. Let's see if we got it here. Live media accessibility. All right. Put in some incidental music. All right.
Nope, still not
that leak?
Nope.
All right. Well, let's just go through it.
We'll hit that another day. Because he.
Okay.
But you know what? That's worth you want to hit the hantavirus just for fun while we're there? That one.
You are 2,680%, 2,687% more likely to be struck by lightning than die from the stupid hantavirus.
Right.
Yeah, it's like is it an election around? Is somebody getting elected? We gotta bring in the virus.
Did you see the one? If you go back to the doc, the Google Doc, there's one that apparently hantavirus is listed as a side effect on page, I think it was 33 of the COVID vax. Not making it up.
Yeah, the hantavirus is a side effect of the COVID vaccine. Everybody's going to be getting it.
Right. So then these next things were just about other like maybe hit the brainstem chiropractor one, the specific chiropractor, because I want everybody to know that is not just a garden variety chiropractor, although they're wonderful too. A brainstem chiropractor has some astounding number of ways to adjust the vertebrae in the neck. And apparently there are 3 million nerves that go through this little itty bitty area in the neck. And so if things are positioned in a way that they're not supposed to be, because as the doctor said, perhaps forceps were used on that child during delivery, perhaps there was some sort of pulling, grabbing, twisting that left the kid's vertebrae positioned in a less than optimal alignment, then getting that back to the appropriate alignment is going to be a huge game changer. They do some scans first. This isn't just guesswork. So yeah, that's the fellow that I know a little bit. He's a friend of a friend, and his practice is near here. His wife is also a sort of holistic health integrative person, and they have a really cool center that's focused on women's health with some really amazing gadgets, one of which is a newer form of TMS, which is a treatment for depression, but also for ADHD. It has not yet been approved for people under 18 by the FDA. The way that I know, there's a couple ways that I know it's good, but one of them is it follows the Pierre-Corey scale, which is the more that the FDA and the medical powers that be attack something and hold up the approval of it, the more you know that it's good stuff, and people who do that technique or gadget or intervention or whatever it is are less likely to need the pharmaceuticals that are such a lucrative industry in our country. So at any rate, the machine is called the ExoMind, and it is not at that practice, but Ron's wife has a practice that is also on that Google Doc. I think it's the next link down, Liam. And that practice has this ExoMind. And the rep from the company who talked to me about it said that the FDA took 11 years to approve it. They just kept finding reasons to jam the process up. And when I heard they stalled for 11 years, I was like, oh, that's good stuff. I can't wait to refer somebody to it.
It's got to be onto something. Dr. Frederico specializes in brain stem centered adjustments, neurological function restoration, comprehensive postural analysis, and cutting-edge technology like MyoVision T2 and Streamwave regenerative therapy. His approach is gentle yet highly precise, allowing thousands of patients to experience profound, lasting improvements in their health and well-being. Wow, sounds right up in the ballpark of what they were talking about with these kids that had their basic nerve corrupted as they were being born, and this might be an interesting regenerative possibility for these kids with autism.
Yeah, one more avenue.
Good find, Susan. Good find. Oh,
well, that one just fell in my lap because I've been buddies. Actually, let's see. Ron's friend's wife is somebody that I grew up with, kind of. So, Ron's friend's wife's brother is the bestie of my siblings. So,
awesome. Well, we've been on for almost 2 hours. How time flies when you're having fun, man.
Right?
These sessions go by so quick. I can't believe we've
They,
been on for
they
2
do.
hours, but
But you know what, Liam? I wish two things. Number one, I wish we knew the MAHA, the topics before, so then I could get myself together and have like a little more organization on the links and resources.
The only way I found that I can get, because I'm not sure that they know. They may have like, let's try to do autism, and then they try to get the people, and maybe like the Tuesday before, like, okay, we're doing autism. I'm not sure exactly how.
True,
It's
true.
like,
Yeah.
So they don't have it in their, like, I get the email, and they don't have it in the email. When they do have it sometimes, this is why I say maybe they're in that sort of production flow where they need to lock these people in to create the broadcast, is because the Tuesday before or the Monday before, sometimes on X, they'll have a synopsis of what.
I haven't been checking export. I've been checking the email thingy that they send, the kind of the blurb, the weekly, and Caitlin, whatever her name is, she has like the MAHA minute thing, and because it was all about the pharma stuff and psychotropics and kids, I got myself all geared up to do that and pulled all the links that had to do with that. So,
yeah. And you can see, because like sometimes it's just a hodgepodge of stuff. Then everybody kind of comes on and says what they want to say, and then sometimes it's a theme centered on a specific subject. But this was super enlightening. I'm learning so much with these.
Liam,
They say that
I think we ought to shamelessly self-promote, and I think we ought to mention our thing with Leanne on Friday, and I think we ought to mention part 3 with Bob.
Yeah. So this Friday, 11 Eastern, 10 Eastern, 10:30 Central, 9:30 Canadian time, wherever Leanne is. We're going to do a podcast.
And so Leanne
maybe you could
is
just
a menopause, I call her goddess of menopause. She is a menopause certified exercise guidelines and weight loss guidelines. But Leanne knows a tremendous amount about functional medicine, and she keeps popping on to these things that Liam and I do, whether these MAHA ones or other ones that we've done. And boy, does she chime in, and the woman knows her stuff. So I've been super impressed. And because menopause is such a confusing mishmash of conflicting information from the so-called experts, we are calling in the high-level people from Canada. And Leanne is going to enlighten us all about all of the above. So that should be a fun one.
Hopefully, we're working on the description. We'll have that tonight, and I'll get that up, and we'll have the event created soon. So, all right, everyone.
And then Bob, we should just mention what we're doing. Even though we don't know the date, we should just mention it.
Right.
We have, in the realm of a really inspiring person who just will not stop. 22 years later, he's still fighting for what he wants, which is to make sure people are aware of the risks of psychotropics so that they do not have the tragedy that he experienced. So we've had we being me and Liam have had 2 conversations with Bob so far. Both of those podcasts are findable on both LinkedIn under Liam's profile and my profile. And they're also findable on my Substack, which is 30 years down the rabbit hole.substack.com. And then we're going to schedule part 3, where we're going to talk about how the medical establishment responded, which it will not surprise anybody to know that they were not warm and receptive and lovely to Bob when he went to them and said, hey, this was doctor caused. The guy prescribed it to me at 3 times the dose that it should have been. And he just got stonewalled, shut down, kicked out of that medical practice, all kinds of, as my aunt would say, bad words about how they treated him. So, but good for him for not giving up. He's amazing.
Yeah, and he's got, it was a tragic story, but his his health road back was met with some really competent people, like a psychiatrist who didn't just drug like they did to my dear mother. They didn't just drug the crap out of him trying to find some other magic pill to counteract the toxins that he took in the beginning. So
well, I think he did get drugged up first. I think he did have a couple of years of like polypharma stuff, but then he got to the good person. And maybe that's the last thing to kind of shout out about is we are on a quest for a psychiatrist that does not treat Bob to come on the podcast and comment on from a the lens of a psychiatric provider as to what happened and why it happened and how best practices were or were not observed, et cetera, et cetera. So if anybody knows anybody and wants to put them in touch with Liam or with me or with Bob Schwartz, I am Susan L. Morodo at gmail.com, and Liam, I'll let you do you. And
let me get that banner up. Let me get that banner up, Susan.
There I am.
L. Morodo at gmail.com, and you can find me at info at.
Or they can send it by royal courier to the kingdom, maybe, and
to the kingdom, right? Either.
So.
Either way, it'll get there.
If they can't find him because he's busy sitting on the throne, then just like give it to a courier, and they'll deliver it to him when he has time.
That's right. Elvis died on the throne. Let's hope that doesn't happen. All right.
All right. Crowns
all right,
on.
everyone.
All right.
Crowns on, and we.
Hold that head high.
Yeah, head. Yeah, there's the crowns on. What else? Crowns on. Lances. Tip of the spear. Crowns on. There we go. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Bye. See you next time.
Au revoir.